So thanks everyone for joining this webinar. We have a great webinar today on 12 simple ways to get patients to say yes to treatment. We want to provide the best dental care to our patients and also provide the care that they're looking for, essentially, and the outcomes that they're looking for. But there's always this communication gap and kind of understanding gap between what we know as clinicians and what the patient understands is the best option in any given circumstance. And so we want to be able to present treatment and get them to say yes to treatment in a way that's not salesy. It doesn't feel icky to talk about these things. And also, we don't want to feel like or actually do any unnecessary treatment in the clinical perspective. And so today we want to give you some great tips and pointers and tricks, essentially 12 simple ways to get the job done and get patients to say yes when you yourself as a team believe that this is the best solution for the patient for their dental and oral hygiene. So I am your host today. My name is Neil Kotari. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of PracticeWeb, and I'm very delighted to share this time with you. And we always feel that your time is very valuable, so we appreciate you joining us today on the webinar. Just a quick introduction to PracticeWeb. Those who have been using PracticeWeb for a long time will know this, but those who are a little bit newer or are not currently using PracticeWeb will appreciate the fact that we've been the industry-leading practice management solution since 1994. So we've been in the industry a very long time. We have a wealth of experience and knowledge that we've gained from our interactions with you, your offices, and helping to partner in your success over the years. We are very kind of broad-based in our clients that we help. We help solo to multi-location practices and everyone from general dentists to all types of specialties. And then finally, I do want to remind everyone or educate you that we are an all-in-one practice management solution. That means that not only do we do the traditional kind of scheduling, charting and billing solution, but we also have patient communication, online reviews, marketing, imaging solutions, ERX, e-prescribing, and the whole panoply of things that you would need to run your practice. That being said, those who are watching this video on YouTube, I would love for you to like the video, or also right here as you're watching, you can click the subscribe button. And then finally, click that bell icon so that'll allow you to get notified whenever and however we post these great educational videos. To give you a quick overview, we're going to go over the basics of case acceptance. What are average rates, ideal rates, and how do you calculate your rate of case acceptance? Then we'll cover 12 strategies to improve case acceptance, along with a lot of wonderful tools that can help you along the way. And then finally, we'll give you next steps and share some special offers that we have to, again, assist in the case acceptance model that we're going to provide. So first, we want to give you a case acceptance roadmap, where you are now and where you can be. What we want to do now, if you can be so kind as to follow these instructions live. If you do this live, it's just going to help you that much more. So right now on your computer, you can pull up PracticeWeb. Don't worry, the webinar is not going to go away. You can just kind of switch to PracticeWeb real quick. What you want to do is go to Reports and then click on Standard. Then you're going to see in the monthly section in the bottom left, there's a report called Treatment Presentation Statistics. Click that report, and you can kind of keep it to the default. So the default is going to be this month, the current month, and then you're going to see all the options selected, all the users, all the clinics, etc. So keep the default options for now, and then just click on OK to generate that report. Now it's going to look something like this, what I'm showing on the screen. The report will look something like this, and it'll say at the top, presented procedure totals for your office. Now, let me give you a couple of formulas here. The first formula is so if you want to get a case acceptance number, now let's remember that this is the more traditional or gold standard kind of formula. This is what you want to aim for, to use this formula. However, this formula will really depend on you having used the treatment plan module the way it's intended. So essentially using those safe treatment plans, etc., and presenting treatment. So if you're not cleaning up data, which means, like, for example, let's say you presented both I think the example we have here is both an implant and a bridge. If you presented both an implant and a bridge on the same treatment plan, and the patient only accepts one of them, that means you're going to actually have a 50% case acceptance there. But technically speaking, it's 100% case acceptance because they just chose one of the alternatives. If you haven't been deleting that other option from your active treatment plan, then the numbers might be skewed a little bit. But just to give a rough idea, you want to look at the formula would be the completed treatment amount, which is right here, which is called gross comp amount, is probably what we're going to be seeing. So that amount, which is here in this example, is $20,272 plus the scheduled treatment amount. So I'm kind of asking you to take out your calculators here. The 87,840 in this example. So you add those two together, and then that combined amount, you just simply divide it by the presented treatment amount, which in this is called the gross TP amount. Sometimes you're going to have a net TP amount, so it depends on whether you're using gross or net, but if you use the default option, it's going to say gross TP amount. So you divide that, in this example, it's $359,290. And then that, whatever you get from that number, you just multiply it by 100 to get the percentage. So in this example, the percentage came out to roughly 30%. So this is the gold standard formula that we would suggest using. Now, if you haven't been using the treatment plan module the way it's intended in terms of presenting things and cleaning up your data if something's not accepted, then you can use this other formula, which is a simpler one. And that's simply looking at the completed amount divided by the scheduled amount times 100. And that'll give you a rough idea. It's usually going to be a percentage that's less than your true case acceptance, because you'll have people scheduling things. And let's say, in my opinion, when someone schedules treatment, they've essentially accepted treatment, because, now you just expect them to show up, and usually they do show up, or they may reschedule it, worst case scenario. Very few people just don't show up at all for that. So schedule is normally considered acceptance, but in this case, we're just going to use it as the denominator. So this will be underestimating your case acceptance, but it'll give you an idea. So we're just taking the completed, looking at what's actually completed divided by what's scheduled, and then multiplying by 100. But the gold standard formula is the first one at the top. Now, what is case acceptance looking like in the general landscape of dentistry? So for new patients, usually it's about 25 to 35%. So on the new patient exam, if you present some treatment that they need, then you're going to expect a 25 to 35 on average. For existing patients, because they've built that trust factor, they've built the trust, it's higher, somewhere hovering around 50 to 60%. We recommend that your target should be, the ideal is 90%. So if you're presenting things that should be presented and you're using all the tips and tricks we're going to give you today, you should be able to inch up towards that 90%, which is amazing. That's an amazing target to attain. So what can go wrong? So case acceptance can slip in multiple places. First is, these are like kind of 4 breaking points I'm going to share for case acceptance. Number 1 is dentist. So we'll see how the first kind of presentation, which is by the dentist, there's a lot of things that can go wrong there, and we'll cover how to do better there. Second is financing. How do we give options, or what options do we give, if any, to actually pay for the treatment? Third can be scheduling. So there's a lot of preferences that patients will have for scheduling. There's a lot of things you can do to do efficient scheduling as well. And then finally, of course, we want them to show up. So it's possible that they schedule and don't show up, they change their mind. And that's, again, where acceptance can slip up in a sense. And we're going to try to help you address all those. And now another thing we want to help you address are the top 3 patient objections to accepting treatment. You may intuitively know these 3 objections. I could probably even ask you right now, and you'd maybe guess all 3 because they're pretty common or pretty widespread. Number 1 is time. I don't have the time to get this done, or this is going to take too long. I'm very busy, et cetera, et cetera. So the time is a factor. Fear. So fear of, and it's more like a clinical fear of treatment. And that really does permeate a lot of people. There's a lot of statistics on how much patients are afraid of doing, especially extended dentistry in their mouth and getting the work done. And then finally is money, and most of you would have guessed that. So that's a big objection that patients will have. These are the three main ones: time, fear, and money. We're going to help you overcome them. Jen, what do we see for the results on this?
About 11% said 1 to 29%. 44% of the audience says theirs is 30 to 39%. And then we had 22 at 50 to 59% and 11% at 60 to 69. So okay. The bulk lands in the 30 to 39% range.
Got it. And that's kind of reasonable in terms of what we would expect because of the mix of new patients and existing patients, and what we saw earlier were the averages. But yeah, that's a nice, gives us a nice idea of where everyone's at, and we want to help everyone inch higher, no matter where you're starting right now. So that's great information. Now let's really dive into these 12 strategies. So strategy 1 is to build rapport first. The whole case acceptance process begins really at the first contact, and building that rapport. The more you do on this point, it's just going to pay dividends later down the road when you actually get to the case acceptance phase of things. So what's motivating your patients? About 15% of decisions that we make, and especially in dentistry, are based on facts, whereas 85% are based on emotion. Now, there's all kinds of emotions we can have. And what will happen here, it's interesting because it's not, we think that decisions are logical. We look at, okay, what are the reasons I need to get this done? What are the costs? What's my schedule look like? We think it's all logical, but it's actually 85% emotional. And logic actually helps us justify to ourselves our emotional decisions. That's not only in dentistry, but it's basically any decision we make. There's a lot of very detailed research that has been done on this and has proven this. So it's a reality. So it's all emotional based for the most part, but the logic plays a role, or the facts play a role. So what does this mean? The dentists and their teams really need to get to know the patient to understand why they're there. It's not because it's time for a checkup, but there's an emotion behind each statement that you can use as a guide to get the patient to where they need to be. So, there's actually an interesting psychologist named Robert Plutchik, who has hypothesized there are 8 primary emotions, and you can kind of see this in the a bit in this graphic here. So, what are the 8 primary emotions? Joy, trust, fear, surprise, sadness, disgust, anger, and anticipation. So we can see that right here in this kind of second outer part of the circle. And as we look at this chart, it's easy to kind of visualize how all the other emotions are blends of these primary emotions, right? We can also see how they manifest into statements that patients make. So if we kind of hone in on this, the emotions that the patient is expressing, we can more easily guide them to treatment. So, we should really add these statements to the patient's chart in PracticeWeb so that it'll remind you of how to kind of guide them and walk them through their needs and options. You can also use these emotions to reaffirm a patient's decision and build that rapport. For example, the patient who says, "I should have taken better care of my health," is pensive or sad, right? Pensive or sad. And you can see that right here in this bottom part of the chart, pensiveness and sadness. They're making decisions out of regret. So that's a great opportunity to say, well, you can't change the past, but you're here now, and let's work together to get you the smile you deserve, right? So you're kind of working off of that emotion and turning into a positive and giving them like the promised land, right? So there's all these emotions. You can see it's all color coded for you. I'm not going to go through every detail here, but you can see like the ecstasy, joy, serenity. That emotional example is connected to this statement up here: "My teeth always feel so good after a cleaning." So if they're saying these things, you can kind of connect it to an emotion, and that you can build off of that emotion in your case presentation. This is fascinating stuff. I hope you find it interesting. Each of these statements has an emotion behind it. You can connect to that emotion and statement, and that should guide how you kind of do the case presentation. Now, this is a lot of psychology. It makes it actually very interesting and fun, but you may not be thinking this deep into it, but we hope that you do start thinking in this direction when you build that rapport. Now, even if the dentist doesn't pick up on these underlying feelings, a patient will still likely say yes if there's trust between you and the patient. This is obvious, but it's much easier said than done. Now, and here's an example. We're just giving some examples here of how to do this trust building and rapport building. For example, tour, new patient. This is why you give the new patient tour, to build the trust, which in turn will help with case acceptance and make sure that you guys will align on what you think is right for the patient. So that's why we give the new patient tour. Take out that 10 minutes of time to do this, because it'll pay dividends in the future when you get to case presentation. So here's an example of what you could do in the tour, just real quick. Show the bathrooms, obviously orient them so they know where to serve themselves, like in terms of bathrooms. Hygiene station, a lot of people want to actually clean their mouth before they even go in. They're embarrassed about their hygiene before they come into the operatory, so they want to do that. So show them the hygiene station. Show them your snazzy technology, which actually shows that you are really caring about their oral hygiene. It's not to brag, but it's to show that you care about their oral hygiene, and you show the latest and greatest technology you have, whatever that might be. It doesn't mean that you have to have a brand spanking new CBCT machine or a 3D scanner or a printing machine or something. You can have whatever technology you have. You should actually share it with them. Credentials, which again lead to trust. Credentials of the dentist. A smile gallery is a must, whether it's in the form of a book or on the wall or something even more different than that. Sterilization, just to show that they're protected and they don't have to fear any cross-contamination. Your practice origin story. I always talk about how if you look at like the Marvel movies, people love a good origin story, and the first movie is usually like the most interesting one, and they have several sequels, but the first one's usually the most interesting because everyone loves a good origin story. Where did you come from? What were the challenges you guys overcame? What are the great things about your practice that you've built over the years? Where have you really put these efforts to increase your quality of care over the years? So that the practice story is really, really interesting to people. And then who are the key people that they're going to interact with? Who's introduced them to front office, back office, the dentists, the hygienists, the assistants, everyone involved, even the billing coordinator, the treatment coordinator. Who are these people? Just give a quick introduction. It can be done. You don't have to actually introduce them, but you can just kind of give them maybe there's a staff team picture, and you can kind of point out who everyone is. So there's a good way to do a tour that builds rapport. Now, as I mentioned earlier about the emotions, you could put that somewhere in the treatment or in the dental chart of Practice Web, but there's a great little section at the bottom of, the bottom of Practice Web to chart, where you can that's actually intended to put notes, like personal notes about the patient. So for example, right here it says, from New York, loves the Mets, expecting their first grandchild, and then 12/22 or December of this year, planning to spend the holidays in NYC and meet the grandbaby. So this is great information you can bring up either during that visit or even in the future. So let's say they come back after December. You can say, hey, how was your visit? I know you were gonna visit your first grandbaby. That's so fun and an incredible moment for you. How was that? How about the Mets? I caught the score. They won a great game last night. Did you get a chance to watch that? What did you guys do in New York when you went for the holidays over there? So there's so much material you can gain by just making some simple notes. And so ask these questions with the patient. Take some time out for that in the exam. So that's what this is all about. Nail the first 90 seconds. So first is PMA. Go in with a positive attitude. Patients will pick up on your emotions and it will influence them. We don't care or shouldn't care if your car broke down in the morning. The patient should not know or feel that your car broke down in the morning and you need to rush to get in the office. When you're in front of the patient, positive attitude. Next, beam when you go in, like have a smile, because hey, we're in the smile business. So if you're smiling, they're gonna really pick up on that. And then introduce yourself, extend your hand first to shake their hand, or if I don't know, in the age of COVID, if you want to do a fist bump, do some sort of like kind of personal thing that you can. Use their name when you talk to them. It's been said many times over, the favorite word in the English language for anyone is their own name. So you say their name, they're gonna love it. Eye contact. Make a habit of noticing their eye color as a trick to remember to make eye contact. So, hey, what's their eye color? So that's kind of just a trick to make sure you're focused. But basically, be at eye level when you talk to them. It makes you less intimidating, like you're hovering over. So be at eye contact. Then have open body posture. When you have closed arms like this, then it kind of gives off the vibe that you're not really open to what they want to say and hear them out. So have an open body posture, open it up, makes you seem warm, and then keep your kind of heart or chest pointed towards the patient. That'll remind you to do that. If you're wearing a coat, open it up a little bit. Use your hands when you're talking. Keep your palms up as opposed to a different direction. Keep your palms up. It's kind of an asking gesture as opposed to like a instructing or demanding gesture. And be mindful of close positions, like I said, with crossing your arms, etc., turning away. Like if you're typing away on a computer while you're talking to them and they're like on the side, not a good idea. It's not open. Warm, empathize with the patient and show them that you care. Be really mindful of how you address them. Let them know that you see them and you want them to be seen. So if someone really indicates like, hey, I'm confused here, I'm overwhelmed, and acknowledge, hey, it's okay. This is a lot. Like I said earlier, even in the webinar, I know the case acceptance thing was the formula might be a lot. Acknowledge it, but let them know that they're in good hands and that you're going to handle it for them or get them through it. And if they think or they indicate that they're a dental expert, maybe they've done their Googling. A lot of patients will Google a lot of stuff and come in. Then play along and let them, feed that ego a little bit. Don't just shut them down. Oh, well, they say a lot of things on Google, but it's not always right. Now I'm glad you're here. You're talking to the real expert. Google's not the expert. Don't shut them down. If they've done their research, it's okay. Let it go along, but then you can still explain things your way. And you can even praise them for having done their research and they've put an interest in their oral hygiene. Mirror. So this is really interesting concept. So you want to kind of mirror the behavior of others. If this is kind of a nice extra like next level strategy. So it really has been found that if you mirror what they're doing, so if they're smiling and you smile at the same time, if they kind of cross their leg over and you do it at the same time, they found mirroring actually leads to likability. So they like you more if you're kind of mirroring what they're doing. Obviously, there can be a kind of creepy way to do this. So, but add it to your arsenal of tricks here. And then common ground, remark when, or kind of acknowledge when you discover that you share something that they prefer, their behavior. So again, that similarity, there's a similarity effect. And if you have shared values of any kind, any common ground, then it's going to make you more likable. And again, we're talking all about building rapport, which will then in turn help with case acceptance and just getting everyone on the same page, you and the patient. So for example, I love that team too. Or yeah, you know what? I need my coffee to start. Like if they say, hey, sorry, I got a little bit late. I was stuck in the Starbucks line. I just have to have my coffee in the morning. Oh, you know what? I'm the same way. If I don't put a cup of Joe on, I can't get going. So you don't worry. I understand. So whatever common ground you can find, go for it. And then lastly, relatable. Once a patient feels that you're competent, admit a flaw. Like, just kind of maybe you forget things that aren't written down, or you're afraid you'll forget they need an appointment or if they don't make one right away. So basically, first you want to make sure you're competent, but it's okay to make yourself relatable or vulnerable. And so you can kind of say like, hey, let me write it down. I hate to forget. I hear one thing, I forget the next minute. I want to write this down. So a little bit of showing a flaw or something that you're human actually brings you down to their level, which makes you more likable and relatable. So those are some great strategies for building rapport. There's a lot more we can say, but that's a great start if you implement that. Strategy number 2, simplify and standardize your procedure explanations. So This is a great quote to keep in mind. 2 parts here. Never overestimate the knowledge of your patients. Don't think that they know something that they may not. But at the same time, don't underestimate their intelligence. Don't think they're an idiot and they can't understand what you're saying, right? So don't overestimate the knowledge. Don't underestimate their intelligence. You have to hit them in the sweet spot. So if you talk to them like they're dumb, you're going to come off as patronizing. But dental isn't their specialty, so don't expect them to understand and follow along with everything you're saying. Now, scripting. So scripting is really useful. You should have a script you follow and explain the same treatments the same way every time. That way, you're going to get more consistent results, and you can run your own test to see if wording things in new ways might increase or decrease patient understanding and case acceptance. If everyone's saying things differently, or even if you're saying on one day you describe why they need the composite filling, you're saying it in one way, and the next day it's totally different, you're not really standardizing, and then you can't tell what's working, what's not, and make those. So standardization, I know people don't always like that, or they don't always like scripting, but it's really, if you want to get to that gold standard or get to that 90%, it's very useful. So here's what you should do in that process of explanation of treatment. Simplest first. This means start with the most basic option and work your way up. This will build the education and help keep the patient focused rather than hitting them with something that might be out of their reach. So, if you get really crazy, and we have an example, we're going to show this to you in a minute. So keep simplest option first, make it clear. So that means, don't treat your language too much. We had actually a great communication webinar, I think last month, where we went over a lot of this treating concept. So, you might try to soothe someone by saying, well, there's good news and there's bad news, or dumb a message down so much that it becomes watered down. So if the dentist isn't clear, people often walk away thinking of scaling and root planning or full mouth debridement as a deep cleaning, right? They don't understand that it's therapeutic and often not covered by insurance like a cleaning, or why that is. So you don't want to kind of dumb it down to a point where it loses the true value of the treatment. And then you also don't want to treat massage language too much, if that makes sense. So make it very clear, ultimately. Non-technical, leading into the second point or the third point, non-technical, use layman's terms. We all kind of know we should be doing this, but example would be a pre-cavity, example of kind of layman's terms here. So pre-cavity or demineralized spot versus a precarious lesion, white or tooth-colored filling versus a composite, biting surface of the tooth versus occlusal. So some people think that using technical jargon will make you feel or seem like an expert, but actually it has a backfiring component to it. So pre-cavity is better than precarious lesion, as we show there. Now include costs. The dentist doesn't need to give the full breakdown, but they should be able to explain why some treatments are more costly than others, or why their practice charges for something that another practice may not charge for. So we're going to cover this later as well, but the dentist does need to get involved here. A lot of times we just kind of fork it over to the treatment coordinator or the dental assistant or someone else, front office, but the dentist has a lot of credibility. So if they can kind of prep the patient for what to expect, like I said, just why something might be more costly than another thing, then that's going to help a lot. You're just kind of really helping your team there. Now, return to so again, when you're doing all this, remember all that emotional stuff we talked about, get back to that and tap into that. Now, rehearsing is also good. And so let me actually combine these two things. So let's take the rehearsing will help when you have that script component, but the emotional part, it's going to be kind of spontaneous, right? Because everyone has a different emotion, but you should be able to kind of rehearse that too. So for example, if they say, whatever their emotion is, if they're like, if you say, I know you feel bad about not coming in for so long, let's get started on this treatment so you can start feeling better about where you are now. That could be like if they have that regret going on, as we discussed. Or, I know you're really excited about improving your smile. I can't wait to hand you the mirror when we're done either. So now you're tapping into that other, like the vanity aspect, or the aspect where they really want that joyous feeling, and that's what they're coming there for. So rehearse it and incorporate all these different strategies in your explanation. Also, treat it like a first impression. So remember that first 90-second slide that we talked about, that open body language, all that stuff. So that should also be done when explaining treatment. Now, here's a good example of treatment presentation gone wrong. So in this example, the patient's on the side, and so he's on the right side, and the doctor, I think you've probably figured that out, the doctor's on the left side. And we're going to show a conversation going back and forth. So the doctor says, hey, we should talk about a prosthesis for your missing tooth, and endosteel, and see, I don't even know how to pronounce it. An endosteel implant is the way to go. So the patient says, why? I'm not sure I can afford one. That sounds expensive. I can have my front office set you up with the financing. Don't worry. So you may think that's a good answer, but it's not, and we'll show you why in the second example. Well, I just wanted a cleaning. What about that cavity you found? I can't afford both. Oh, well, we'll take care of that when you come in for the implant surgery. The implant is a 3-step process that starts with bone grafting, yada, 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 yada. So you can see here that the doctor is completely missing the mark. The doctor has something in their mind, what they want to do, what they want to get accepted. The patient's in a totally different place, and there's no eye to eye, meeting eye to eye here. So then he says, bone grafting, isn't there a simpler solution than that? That sounds like intense. Let me think about it. The dreaded words that we all hate to hear. Let me think about it. So here's a better case presentation. So have you thought about replacing that missing tooth? Yeah, but it's been low on the priority list, and now that I need a filling, I'm not sure I'll get to it. I don't like the way it looks now. I totally understand, but I'm worried your teeth will shift, and replacing it will become more complicated if you wait too long. How do you feel about going over the options, just so you know what you're looking at when you're ready? That sounds good. I mean, I don't mind looking at options. That doesn't seem scary to me. So a partial denture is going to be the simplest replacement. Again, starting with the simplest option here. It's going to help aesthetically and it'll last a few years, but it's not going to feel or work like a natural tooth. A bridge with crowns on either side and a false tooth in the middle will look and feel a bit more natural and will last longer too. It's the next step up. I personally favor an implant here because it's going to mimic your natural tooth, though the investment might be a little bit more because it's a more permanent solution. What are your thoughts? So see how the doctor is kind of going from the simplest to the most kind of expensive and involved option, and kind of really explaining what the implant is better. The implant sounds good now that you say it that way, but I'm worried I can only afford the bridge right now because of the other work I need to get done. The bridge is a good choice that will address your aesthetic concerns, but if the cost is really the reason, I never want someone to not get the best treatment because of cost. So my officer, Kim, can walk you through the financing options, the insurance, and that very well might put it within reach for you. How does that sound? That would be awesome. Hey, if we can work something out with insurance and financing, you've kind of sold me on why I should do that. It was just really the cost factor. Let's try it out. This is a good case presentation flow. What's happening here is you can see that she's really empathizing with the patient. I totally understand, but I'm worried. So you're kind of empathizing, but then giving your piece, your 2 cents. She's educating him, presenting a simplest option first, why the implant's the best. Also notes the cost, kind of prepping them. That's going to be more expensive. And it's all open-ended, so you can see what are your thoughts. Open-ended question. And then also she's allowing him to choose what he wants to do and reinforcing that he's making a good decision because it'll meet his goals. And then also redirects him to the best solution while it's like jujitsu, like while overcoming his financial barrier. Now, strategy number 3 is give the patient the floor. After you've done your presentation, which we covered, give the patient the floor. The right word may be effective, but no word was ever as effective as a rightly timed pause. And that's Mark Twain. So Mark Twain, the author, famous, amazing writer and a man of letters, as they would say, a man of words. And he's a person saying, nothing's as good as a pause, rightly timed. So that's important after you do the presentation, letting the patient talk, or even during the presentation, as we saw in that previous example, interaction, make it a dialogue. So patients should take about 30 to 50% of talk time. There's some interesting studies done about male patients versus female patients, and also male provider versus female provider. You can see that here. With the male provider, the female patients usually, in an average 10-minute interaction, 4 minutes of talking, a little bit more than a male patient. When it's a female provider, you see that even jump up, actually for both, but definitely for the female patient, they feel maybe more comfortable talking more. So it jumps up to almost 5 minutes. So we want to let them talk. And if they're not talking this much, give or take, then there's probably something wrong there, and it's not going to actually maybe end up the way you want it to. Engaged patients ask an average of 5 questions per 10-minute interaction. If they're not asking 5 on average, again, there's probably something going wrong. So you should look out for these things. They may say yes, 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 nod, 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 but it may not turn out well. Use open-ended questions to spur conversation. So here's a ton of examples. If you're like, yeah, what's that? What are some good ideas? These are all open-ended, great options that you can use to spur conversation, get them talking. Again, going back to the previous thing, they should be talking. Strategy number 4, invest in case acceptance and schedule accordingly. So what do we mean by invest in case acceptance? Well, time is money, but you got to give the time to get the money. So allow adequate time for discussion. If you're not feeling rushed and running from room to room, if you are feeling rushed and running from room to room, odds are your patients are probably feeling rushed too, and that's not a great recipe for success. You're probably not doing everything we've talked about so far, and your patients are probably uncomfortable asking you to slow down and ask you questions, so they're just kind of going with the flow. So dentists don't usually have enough time with patients, like organically. It's something you have to plan for, and you have to include in the schedule, and we're going to kind of show you how to do that here. So time yourself. If you don't know how much time you're currently taking to present, then time yourself or have an assistant time you. And again, this seems like wishy-washy stuff or not worth your time. This stuff is this is the secret sauce, guys. We're giving you the secret sauce here. So really take it to heart. Time yourself. Next is create guidelines for scheduling. Know how much time you spend with patients under different circumstances. For example, a new patient who reports seeing a dentist 6 months ago versus a new patient who hasn't seen a dentist in years, they're going to need different amount of time probably. So make sure to communicate these to the team so the front office knows how to schedule maybe there and tweak it. Use time bars in practice. So we're going to show that in the next slide. Be available after. The patient should know how to get in touch with the doctor if they have a question later. So now here, let's talk about those time bars. They're super important. So you have provider time bar, which is here in this example, it's the pink section. So that provider's color is pink. You have the appointment time bar, which is the actual appointment time, and then the operatory time bar. So these are all different kind of time bars. And what you can do here, for example, is like right here, so the provider time bars show when the provider's in or needs to be in the operatory with the patient. So here, in this example, actually, the blue color represents the doctor because that's his color. The pink is actually the hygienist. So there's a mix of blue and pink because they're both working that appointment. And you can see that the hygienist is in operatory 3, but the schedule knows she's there. The white section is the assistant time, and the appointment time bar shows the same information but just for that operatory. So if that makes sense, like this is showing just for that operatory right here. And then the operatory time bar shows availability in that operatory. So right here, let me go back. You can see this time bar shows like if there's available time in that time slot, in that operatory. So this is they all kind of work together. And if you have any questions on this, definitely call support. We can help you set it up and make sure it's working. And a lot of the procedures and appointment types have these doctor versus assistant time already incorporated in there. You can tweak them at the procedure code level. So there's a help guide on this, and you're going to get a link to it in your post-webinar email. And as I said, all procedure codes already have time patterns set up. There's a kind of slash that represents assistant time. X represents provider time. When you look at it on the schedule, the white is the assistant time, and the colored part is the provider time. And you can kind of move the slider. The slider over here is like right here. You can move this thing up and down to change the total time. And so because in this example, we're using 15-minute increments in the schedule, this setup means there's a 45-minute appointment where you have the dentist, the dentist, which is the X is the 15-minute amount. And then the 2 slashes means before and after there's an assistant, that's 30 minutes. Right there. Now, down here, you can also see at the bottom. So up there, you can kind of get a sense because you know it's 15-minute increments. You know it's 45 minutes, 3 increments. At the bottom, you also see the time. Set up the schedule by marking when a provider is in the office and which operatories they're working in. When you do this, you also get that search feature that's in the appointment module. You can really maximize that too. You don't have to manually look for appointment slots, which is a huge time saver. Now, remove time barriers for patients. What should we do here? Set aside time in your schedule for patients who want to get dentistry done in fewer well-planned visits. So offer that priority scheduling. Same day is awesome. And or you can set aside time for specific types of procedures you want to do more of. So, for example, going back to the same day concept. So if you said, hey, Mr. Jones, if we can do all your dentistry that I mentioned in one visit, even maybe today or maybe it's another day, but it's one visit, would you prefer that? And if they might say yes, but that's great. They said yes, but now you have other objections which you can handle. It's either fear or money, most likely. But essentially, if you use priority scheduling for people who want to get dentistry done and have procedure blockouts for, like, let's see here, you can see crown or RCT, etc. Then that's going to really help. Now, the last point here is to remove the time barriers is boost your clinical efficiency. Make sure that when the doctor walks in the room, the scans are done, the consents are signed, the questions are answered that you can answer, and then the doctor is in there during that appointment, the actual procedure appointment, they're ready to get to work. Now, strategy 5, you can use a graphical 2 chart, which of course is there in Practice Web. You also have the perio chart too as a graphical option. You have the intraoral photos, x-rays, which sometimes you might see them in Practice Web, or sometimes you might be using a bridge. If you're using them in Practice Web, you can use it this way, or you see at the top there, the circle, you can use that bridge and just open up your imaging software. So there's a lot of ways to get the information across, and that will really help from the visual perspective. Now, strategy number 6, give patients options. So this means autonomy. So we showed this in some of the examples earlier, but 9 out of 10 patients say they want to be in control of their healthcare decisions, which is pretty obvious. I'm surprised it's not 10 out of 10, but at least 9 out of 10 there. And here, one of the things, like, just a quick example of options. This is not everything here, but fear. So fear was one of those 3 key objections we mentioned earlier. So here, give them some options. Put them in charge of their healthcare, right? Here's an example. So how can you reduce fear? So first of all, make the office inviting. TVs on the ceiling, headphones, VIP treatment. Put some warm apple cider in the waiting room. Like, there's all kinds of things you can do. And we had a whole another webinar on this earlier. But make it inviting. But then the option part comes in here. So sedation. So a lot of times, if you have a longer appointment, like a 2-hour plus appointment where you're doing major procedures, you don't even wait for them to ask about sedation. You can offer it voluntarily and just say, look, we have these options for oral sedation, IV sedation, deep IV sedation, general anesthesia. If you don't have some of these options, you can easily get them made available to your practice. You can work with an anesthesiologist if you need to. You can get some continuing education to do some of these methods. But this is great stuff that really takes out the whole fear component, because if you're not awake while they're doing it, they're pretty much a large amount of that fear goes away. So again, options, put them in charge of their healthcare. This is an example of that. Now, strategy number 7 is unify the team. Super important, consistent messaging and enthusiasm. If your team doesn't believe in your treatment philosophies, their lack of enthusiasm will break through and kill your case acceptance. So also think back, if we thought those 4 places where the case acceptance breaks down, think back to that too, because it relates to this. But really take time to educate the team on why you have the philosophies you do. That way, the other team members can be evangelists. Instead of working against you, they're working with you, and they repeat things to patients the same way that you do. The best practices do this time and time again. You will find it across the board and with the most successful practices. Be prepared, take time to onboard the team and get them excited about your values and your culture and your philosophy of treatment. Be prepared to field questions from your team. If you change something, you add a new type of treatment that you're doing, or you're going to change your philosophy because maybe you learned something different, be prepared to field questions. If they don't understand it, the patient will not either. Imagine that they're basically your mouthpiece in many scenarios. So if they question you, don't see it as them like undermining your authority. See it as they're trying to understand. And in huddles, you should really discuss large cases and potential large cases coming in, and then also cover your case acceptance rates. Make sure every person knows what role they play in that. Now, strategy 8, provide clear treatment plans. So now, one really nice strategy I like is in Practice Web under the procedure code list. You can go into any procedure code you want, and there's a section called layman's term. And what this does is when you fill out, like let's say here is an example of prophylaxis adult. Now, no one's going to know what a prophylaxis is, almost no one that's coming to see you. So you might want to use layman's term of teeth cleaning. Now, that teeth cleaning description is going to show up everywhere that's patient facing. So in your treatment plans, it'll say teeth cleaning instead of prophylaxis. In the chart module, it'll say that because you might be printing out the notes for them too sometimes, or giving them the notes. The account module where you have billing statements, it's going to say teeth cleaning. So this is a very, very underused but very good strategy for clarity. And then use priorities to break treatment up. So here you can highlight the procedures as you're seeing here and set priority where it's available there, where it says set priority. And that's a great option. So now you can kind of break it down of what should come first, second, third. Another thing you can do is you can show multiple treatment plans to the patient, and then also present multiple ones. So remember that, as we said at the beginning, the treatment plans must be saved to get accurate treatment acceptance reports. So if you're going to use that report, make sure when you're presenting treatment to patient, you're saving a treatment plan, presenting it. And then all the saved treatment plans will contribute to your treatment plan amount in that report that we talked about. So you can basically present multiple options. You can see here we're creating multiple options and then saving that. And then you can modify the name. So you can have like option 1, option 2, etc. And there's a great video on all of this. There's another tutorial. If you search our YouTube page for treatment planning, this will all be explained in more detail. Now, make sure the patient gets a copy. You can text it, you can email it, you can print it. There's multiple ways to get it to the patient. And that'll be good to, if they're not going to sign up right then and there, it's good to have that in hand or available at least electronically. Now, next thing is planned appointments. So from the treatment plan module, you can do planned appointments to break the treatment into easily digested bits and focus on knocking things out one at a time. So the the planned appointments feature is right there in the treatment plan module. You click that plan appointment button, it takes you here. You can put some notes in, and this is really great for the front office because they can take this planned appointment when the person's walking out and get it right on the schedule. So use that feature of planned appointments. Strategy number 9, have financial options prepared. So there's a couple of things here that I'll cover with you. Number 1, you can use real-time eligibility and benefits checks. What this does is it allows you to make sure your benefits information is up to date for the patient so they get the most accurate estimates, right? So use that, or at least, make sure you're calling insurance companies and getting this stuff updated on a pretty good frequency. You can do this through Claim Connect, which is a service of Dental Exchange. A lot of you use Claim Connect for e-claims, so it's just a matter of adding this on. It's a very low cost, which I'll mention later. You click that request button for the immediate check, and you can get accurate benefits imported into the plan. It's really great. You see everything with, percentages, the co-pays, deductibles, some benefits history. There's exclusions, limitations, all that stuff. So really great. Another thing is to use pre-authorization. So if you have big stuff coming up, you can do a pre-authorization or something that maybe even requires a pre-authorization under the insurance plan. Get that handled through the treatment plan. You can, in the pre-authorization, you can use the integrated attachments feature with Dental Exchange that will allow you to attach like an x-ray, etc., to get that pre-authorization approved. You can put a claim note in there in the general tab as well, explaining the pre-authorization, and then that'll help you get that approved. Now, another strategy for this financing part or the financial part is in-house membership plan. Now, a lot of dentists do plan like, if you get our membership plan, you get 20% off of all major procedures. So that's something that you could do. Or here in this example is 25% off UCR fees, in-house membership plan, and you can also give 2 free cleanings, 2 fluorides, 2 perio, however you want to organize this. But we do have a great membership, or it's called discount plan in Practice Web, but essentially it's a membership plan. And we have a great blog article, which we will link to, that has step-by-step instructions on how to set this up for your practice. So really good and there's a lot of studies been done that when a patient is on a membership plan, there are much higher case acceptance rate, because now imagine Costco, right? When you're part of Costco, guess what? You use Costco because you're part of the Costco membership, right? So you want to use it and take advantage of that. Same thing with Amazon Prime, right? So all of these are membership plans, and the same trend is strongly coming into dentistry. You see it everywhere. Almost every successful dental office has these now. Now, in-house financing is another thing. You can create your own payment plans. I won't cover how to do that right now, but there's a great way to do that in Practice Web, so you can use that feature to give those options to the patient. Another great option is called DocPay, which is kind of basically a payment plan, but it's third-party finance. Now, a lot of you are familiar with other options like Care Credit, and there's other ones like Care Credit out there. The great thing with DocPay is you have 2 options. You can do administered, which means DocPay will basically be like the management of that plan. And patients, you don't pay anything, by the way, for that administration. Patients only pay $3 per transaction. So that's all that's going to that company, DocPay. So you don't get anything cut off the top. You don't lose any money, and they manage the whole thing for you. So DocPay is something you can sign up for within Practice Web. And then secondly is guaranteed payments. So I'm aware that some companies like Care Credit, they have a range, but it's usually like something like 8 to 12% they're taking off the top to do guaranteed payments to you. In this case, with DocPay, it's just 1%, and you pay $1 per payment. For that amount, they will guarantee payment. So if the patient doesn't pay, you're still going to get paid at the end of the day. This is amazing, and DocPay has hundreds and hundreds of dental offices using them because they're so good in this area. So use them for third-party financing. If you have questions, give us a call on that. Now, strategy 10 is create a scheduling policy. So once they do, quote unquote, accept treatment, they still might delay scheduling, or I don't know. There might be things that come up here, and all these things here that I'm going to present can happen before they sign the treatment plan too. And by the way, I didn't mention this earlier, but you should get patients to e-sign your treatment plans, which can be done in the treatment plan module. There's a way to e-sign it, or at least get it signed and then scan it into your record in the images module. But what will stop them from signing it or getting things scheduled? Lack of confidence, like going back to all those problems we discussed before. So if there's distrust, you got to repeat the options, you got to increase the education, and maybe offer a second opinion, but that's like kind of last case scenario. Treatment fears, if there's anxiety, you got to understand it, empathize with it, and what are the triggers. And we talked about, like, for example, sedation, etc., as ways to alleviate some of that. But make sure that you're offering any type of comfort that you can. Payment confusion, make sure it's clear financing. We gave you some ways to do that. Break down the costs. think about discounting. There's a discount option in treatment plan module that you can use as well. Financing is pretty much everything nowadays. Everyone is doing buy now, pay later. So payment plans it's the whole jam right now. So use that. And then breaking up appointments if you really need to do like priority 1, priority 2, priority 3 to help them with the payment concern. Other decision makers. So that's a big one. So a lot of times it's like, well, I love this. I love everything you're saying. You're singing my tune, but my wife, I gotta clear by my wife. Nothing gets past her. So I have to talk, and then we'll get back to this, and I'll let you know. So find out, hey, what's the bottom line here? If your wife or husband was here, or other decision maker, what would make them say no? And then if they tell you, if they're honest, address that objection. That'll help them discuss it with their spouse. And if you want, you can even bring them into the call or bring them into the discussion. You can do like a FaceTime. You can do a teledentistry. You can do a Zoom call. You can do just a simple phone call. Get the other decision maker on the phone right then and there, and just say, look, we're getting filled up quickly. We don't want to delay this further. It's really important. Let's get this done now. And then lastly, time. And we talked about a lot of things there, but find the ideal time and day, shorten the appointments, do full quadrant appointments, do same day dentistry. These are the things. So this will get you over that let me think about it patient. Have follow-up plans. So if they don't schedule, they don't accept in that sense, then a day after, text and email if you want. Maybe they said, hey, I need to get a babysitter. I need to get time off. I need to talk to my wife. Follow up about it. Did you get that figured out? You can even call too. So text and email, and maybe even the call the day after, depending on what the scenario is, what the treatment is. 7 days later, text and email. Dr. Smith has been asking about you, so I wanted to check in again. This is a great way to do it, instead of like, hey, I just want to see if you want to get that done. Hey, Dr. Smith and I were talking, and we were reviewing the patients that are really, really have important treatment pending. And your name came up, by the way. I mean, we're surprised. You might be surprised, but your name came up. And Dr. Smith's really concerned about XYZ situation. And we wanted to check in if you're ready to do that. So make it personal. And then 14 days after, maybe you can text, hey, everything okay? Haven't heard back. Monthly can do lists. So we have a lot of lists that you can use. So for example, we have follow-up lists called the planned appointments or plan tracker list, and I'll show you some of those in a minute. Now, use tasks also. You can use tasks that you set up and assign them to patients to stay on top of these follow-ups. There's a task feature. And then this is the list that I was talking about, plan tracker list. So if you have created planned appointments, then they will show up here, and you can then text all these patients if you want with a single click and get those juices flowing again to get them scheduled. There's another great report, especially right now in quarter 3 and quarter 4 of the year, last half of the year. Use Treatment Plan Manager. There's another one too called Treatment Finder right above it. They're very similar. I like Treatment Plan Manager because it actually shows the procedures that are pending, but Treatment Finder is also great. But you can use these 2 reports to figure out who are all those patients. Maybe you didn't even plan an appointment for them, but they have pending treatment that they haven't scheduled. And now you can see all that treatment and text them right away, or contact them if you want. And there's a whole video on scheduled treatment plans with year-end benefits. There's a whole video on that, which we're going to include in the email, but also you can check it out on our YouTube page. Strategy 11, track monthly. What is going on with case acceptance? Run the report that we showed at the beginning every month to look at the previous one. So are you doing better or worse? And so here's again that formula and what those calculations look like. But run this report once a month and track that. And now you can also drill down by clinic, by provider, by presenter too. That's really interesting. There's a presenter option, like the user, so you can see who presented it and then what the statistics are. So if you have a treatment coordinator or multiple ones that you want to look at, that you could do that too. Strategy, and the last strategy here is think of case acceptance as a process. So, it's over time, right? So many times there's a concept of sales cycle. When you look at sales, there's a concept of sales cycle. Sales, and this is a part of sales, it doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes it takes 6 months to get a yes, right? But if you're not there front of mind for them, they're going to forget about it. You're going to forget about it. It's never going to get done. So you got to stay in touch. So keep messaging using those lists. Follow up in the office. So every time they're in the office, check it out. Check what's pending. Clinically, this should be done. Front office, this should be done. Newsletters, we have a great newsletter feature. You can build trust and education through this, send out specials. Let's say you have a membership plan that you just started after this webinar. Send out an email newsletter, announce it to all your patients. Guess what? If you're giving a 25% discount or 20% discount on major procedures, that's going to bring in some of those people who are on the sidelines and didn't want to get it done. Now it's cheaper for them. They're going to come in. So newsletters are great for these kind of this kind of engagement. Now, those are the 12 strategies. Last thing here, special offers that are expiring this month. We have support, which is amazing. You get a ton of stuff, not only CE, but you get upgrades. We have a new version coming out very soon. Upgrades, support, technical support, mobile forms. There's an analyzer for reporting. There's patient portal, dentist portal. A ton of stuff comes with support. It's a backbone of what you do. And then you also have all these tools that I mentioned. So you have claims and real-time eligibility that you can do, 10% off claims, free real-time eligibility, first 30 days for new clients. Pay Connect, which is that's more like a payment processing integrated into Practice Web that you can do. And they will actually most likely beat your rates that you're paying right now. And then Doc Pay is another one that we mentioned. So that's a great thing that you can use for financing. And to do any sort of pricing check or sign up, go to our website. You can also do it from Practice Web itself. There's a menu at the top where you can do signups from there. And with that, I know that was a lot, but now you're ready to boost your case acceptance. So be assured that you can go back and rewatch any of this information and really study it with your team. I'm sure some or all of it will really help you. And if you need help implementing the strategies, call our support team. You probably know the number, but there it is. And also, you can reach our support team by going to the website, and as well as from the software itself. There's a remote support option under the help menu. Now, connect with us on social media. Keep up with everything we're doing. The blog is amazing. If you haven't read it, practice-web.com. You should subscribe to that. You'll get notifications. So all these things you can just get automatic notifications. All right. Thank you very much. And we look forward to seeing you on the next webinar. Have a nice day. Goodbye.